Good evening, everybody, and welcome here this evening. If this evening matches those videos, I think we're in for a very exciting and informative time. Before we go any further, I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered today on the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Musqueam people. My name is Jed McLean. I'm the Associate Director of the Pacific Institute for Climate Solutions, which was created 10 years ago to develop unique research-based solutions to climate change in collaboration with our 4 research universities in British Columbia. Part of our work is convening meetings and gathering people to important discussions, and that's exactly what we're going to do this evening. So it's a privilege to be here. We have exciting speakers, and I won't delay us very long. When I think of agents of change, I think of a wonderful pun here. One being, of course, the people that I encounter every day, educated within our province and elsewhere, who are out there working hard for change, even the protests we might hear perhaps tonight. I also think of the institutions themselves and the way the institutions of higher learning can actually be agents of change unto themselves, not just teaching, not just training people, but as agents of change. So tonight, we're going to hear a dialogue between 2 leaders of great institutions. After this dialogue, we'll have some question and answers. We'll have a special moment, and then following that, there will be an open reception downstairs. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce President Ono Santos, President of UBC. I could go on, but I think somebody from the University of Victoria introducing the President of the University of BC doesn't make a whole lot of sense, except I will say that under his leadership, UBC has become recognized as, if not the leader, a leader in climate change, particularly in Canada. 2 things. First of all, co-founding the UC3, which is a meeting that we're here to participate in. And something that's very important to PICS is the initiator of the UBC Student-Led Climate Hub, which is a great, unique initiative that we're going to be hearing more about tomorrow. So without any further ado, President Santos.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's really wonderful to have you here at UBC for a couple of days of what I hope will be very stimulating conversation about a very important issue that confronts all of us here on planet Earth. Welcome to UBC. I hope you've had a good time here. It's really wonderful to welcome fellow university leaders and administrators and faculty members and students from a number of different nations, not only the United States and Canada, but Mexico as well. And the Pacific Institute for Climate Solutions is incredibly important in really being a hub that brings together institutions around the Pacific Rim. Others include the APRU, or the Association of Pacific Rim Universities. We really need to have this kind of collaboration to really solve the most vexing problems that face us, including climate change. For those of you who've been here this day so far, I hope you've had a wonderful time on our campus. We are here, as you know, as the UC3 Summit. And I should say first that it was the University of California and Janet Napolitano that founded UC3, and so graciously extended an invitation to UBC as I think the first international university to join UC3. Thank you for your leadership, and we'll say more about that in a moment. I want to say thanks to a number of sponsoring organizations that have been involved: the Pacific Institute for Climate Solutions, or PICS, the University of California's system of 10 great universities, Second Nature, a convener of University UC3, the UBC Sustainability Initiative that we're very proud of, a group of approximately 400 faculty members and thousands of students that are really focused on all kinds of research that is germane to finding a solution to this vexing problem. UBC's campus and community planning that I really believe is really a pioneer in thinking about how to make this campus a living lab, how to, on this campus, do things in a different way and hopefully be an example for others so that we can scale that to Metro Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and the world. And there are some examples of that you'll hear about in this 2-day meeting. The School of Public Policy and Global Affairs, UBC's Institute for Resources, Environment, and Sustainability, and UBC's events and ceremonies teams for really putting on this extraordinary event. The urgency of climate change action, a problem that knows no borders, has implications for all of us. And I do want to say, at the very outset, a shout out to the group of students that were out there. They're doing what they should be doing. Pushing institutions to really do better is something that young people can do better than others. And we need to hear from them. And we need to respond to them because we are stewards of the world that they will inherit. So I'm grateful for what they've done. And their sign out there about divestment is an appropriate sign. Universities need to be involved not just through research and teaching, but through our actions, and that's at the heart of their statement to us. One visionary who realized this early was Janet Napolitano, and we are, as a university, honored to share the stage with her today. Let me tell you a little bit about her if you don't already know. Janet Napolitano is the 20th president of the University of California and the first woman to serve in this role. She leads, as I said, a university system with 10 campuses, 5 medical centers, several of which are among the best in the world, 3 affiliated national labs, a statewide agricultural and natural resources program. We thought we were large here at UBC with 65,000 students. Well, UC has more than 273,000 students, 223,000 faculty and scientists and staff, an operating budget of $36.5 billion, and 2 million living alumni. So you can see in leading an institution, an organization of that size, there really is extraordinary opportunity for that institution to lead and to make a difference. And it really is wonderful for UBC to be partnering with the University of California system, a relationship that has existed for quite some time. As you know, she's a distinguished public servant. She's a former U.S. Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security and was a 2-term governor of the state of Arizona. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming President Janet Napolitano to the stage.
Well, thank you for that kind introduction, President Ono, and I want to thank the University of British Columbia for your gracious welcome here at this extraordinary campus. And I want to acknowledge that we are here tonight on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam people. I'm honored to be billed as an agent of change. I unfortunately left my superhero cape at home. But what I'm particularly thrilled about is to be here this week for the University Climate Change Coalition Vancouver Summit. And proud to work with President Ono and other higher education leaders in this important coalition. Members of this coalition believe that we have a moral responsibility to take swift action on climate change. And I am grateful to have such committed and ambitious partners in this effort. As fellow research institutions, we are banding together in the name of science and in the name of all of humanity to protect a rapidly changing and warming planet. Together we are seeking to be agents of change. Now, agent is an apt word in this regard. It comes from the Latin verb agere, which means to drive, to lead, or to act. Interestingly, adding the prefix co creates the word cogere, literally to drive together. And that has evolved into the English word cogent, meaning something clear and logical and convincing. I like to think that as university communities, we are driving change together. We are pursuing the truth for the public good and providing cogent evidence that can lead to better decision-making and ensure a better future for us all. Now, we often talk about the future in vague terms, but let's drill down on some of the specifics for a moment. Let's talk about the 44,000 children born in British Columbia in the year 2017, or the 471,000 children born in California that same year. This is the generational cohort that will go on to become UBC's and the University of California's class of 2040. What kind of world are they inheriting? What is our responsibility to shape that future? So for my part, I'm often thinking about what the University of California can do as an institution. I ask myself, what is our obligation to shape a better future for that class of 2040? And when I'm overwhelmed by the gravity of that responsibility, and it takes a lot to overwhelm me, I like to think about the nearly infinite possibility that universities bring about. You know, the writer Joan Didion, who was a University of California alum, once said that the University of California is the most coherent expression of the California possibility. I think what she meant was the possibility staked out on the pioneering edge of hope, the kind of possibility seen by people who discover previously hidden truths or build entirely new creations. Possibilities imagined by scientists like Donna Strickland, who won the Nobel Prize in physics last year for a revolutionary technique that led to the creation of ultra-powerful lasers. She was just the third woman in history to win that highest of physics prizes. One of the most striking things in Strickland's speech at the Nobel banquet last winter was her crystallization of the sheer joy in the pursuit of truth in science and academia. She recalled working in the lab as a grad student on the project that would eventually lead to her Nobel Prize. At this lab, Cyndi Lauper's "Girls Just Want to Have Fun" was a hit song, and she recalled thinking that she wanted to have fun while working too, and that she'd done just that in her career studying lasers. Strickland said that she thinks experimental physics is especially fun because, and I quote, "Not only do you get to solve puzzles about the universe or on Earth, there are really cool toys in the lab. In my case, I get to play with high-intensity lasers that can do magical things, like take one color of laser light and turn it into a rainbow of colors." I think there's something kind of pure and beautiful about that articulation of a scientist's love for her work. The sheer delight in pursuing new frontiers and seeing the world in a new light that has never before seen or been witnessed or understood before. So just contemplate for a moment all of the thinkers, the scientists, the artists, the multitude of other academics at research universities across the world at work right now. Think about those at work on this campus right this minute. Imagine the power of what they are discovering, the questions they are asking, the problems they are solving, the solutions they are building as we sit right here. Humans have an amazing capacity for adaptation, for progress, for pushing beyond the limitations of current civilization. For the grand challenges we now face, the global climate crisis being chief amongst them, we need to tap into our deepest stores of ingenuity, of resilience, and creativity. And we must resolve to shift the trajectory of our future. As universities, we can and we must act as agents of change. Stakes are clear. Both British Columbia and California suffered the worst wildfire seasons on record last year. Sea levels are rising across the globe. And we know that the poorest nations are hit the hardest, and that the largest emitters of greenhouse gases are not all doing their part. So this is a moment for action. We cannot be intimidated by the scope of the problem. We can't say it's just too big. I can't do anything. We must stretch the boundaries of what's possible and pursue audacious and pioneering solutions. We must remember that humans have done this before, and we can and we will do it again and again and again. You know, it was researchers at the University of California at Irvine, led by atmospheric scientist Ralph Jay Cicerone, who first theorized in 1974 that chlorofluorocarbons in aerosol spray cans could harm the Earth's ozone layer. At the time, their findings were ridiculed by chemical industry critics who argued that there wasn't enough evidence to warrant taking action against these useful compounds. But their hypothesis paved the way for subsequent research that confirmed these gases had created a hole in the ozone layer, a discovery that captured the public's attention and galvanized the world to action. In 1987, world leaders finalized the Montreal Protocol, an international treaty phasing out the use of chemicals responsible for ozone depletion. Thanks to unprecedented cooperation under the protocol, the hole in the ozone is now shrinking. It takes real willpower and guts to act in the face of massive cultural forces that have shaped our distant and recent past. I believe that research universities like UBC, like the University of California, can provide the tools we need as a human race to take action in the face of a potential climate apocalypse. As university communities, we must communicate clearly and cogently, participate in the conversation while refusing to accept oversimplification. We must use our voices to hold our leaders accountable and use our research to arm decision makers with the best information that we have. Meeting the challenge of climate change, of global warming, will require unprecedented global cooperation and leadership. It will take the ambitious and morally courageous actions of institutions, of corporations, of nations, sometimes all working together to pull us back from where we are now, which is the brink of disaster. Now, I see signs of hope even in the face of the climate crisis. And I am grateful to the UC3 partners for their actions, for their students' passion, for their faculty and staff, and entire communities working together to make a change. We are all agents of massive, growing, should I say, sea change. We can and we will make a difference, but we will only make a difference if we drill down. We do not falter in the face of opposition. We explain and we research and we chart a path forward. That's why we're here. That's why we formed the UC3 coalition. That's why we brought together these great research universities from Canada, from the United States, from Mexico. So I want to say, look, we all know the stakes are high. They could not be higher. The work could not be more important. The talent and the passion of those in this room and those outside who are working on the issue of global warming and climate change are so much in need. So I want to say thank you to President Ono and the University of British Columbia for your leadership. And I want to thank all of you tonight for taking the time to imagine, just imagine what we can accomplish if we all work together and push the bounds of what is possible forward. Let our voices be heard. Let our work be acknowledged. Let's move together. Thank you.
Well, President Napolitano, thank you for those stirring remarks and for the leadership in really proposing this network. And you're absolutely right. Time is of the essence, and bringing together these institutions in North America is a huge first step. I just want to first start by asking you a question. You've had several roles in your life, state of Arizona, at the federal level. How did that impact your decision to really call for this network to be formed?
So, particularly in my last role as Secretary of Homeland Security, I learned how to evaluate risk. What is real risk to the United States? And it became so clear to me that in terms of actual physical danger to our communities, to our people, to our way of life, that global warming was right up there. And that it wasn't being paid enough attention to from a risk perspective. When I came to the University of California, I recognized that we had some of the greatest scientists in the world who were working on these issues. Ram Ramanathan at the University of California, San Diego would be a name I would recognize. It seemed to me that that as a great university, we should set ourselves a challenge. So we set ourselves the challenge of being net carbon neutral by 2025. And we've been working assiduously. That's a very aggressive goal, and I recognize that. But by setting that goal, it somehow mobilized all of these folks at all of our different campuses, all doing disparate work, to kind of come together and say, we need to approach this as a system. Then it seemed to me, having set that goal, that we ought to reach out to our fellow research universities across the continent and kind of see if we could unite and come together, share a phrase I don't like, but I'm going to use it tonight, best practices, share really smart stuff, and also think deeply about how universities could affect policies in their local communities in which they are situated, and in their states, et cetera, to really grapple with global warming from a public policy perspective. Public policy based on data, based on evidence, based on research. And to me, a great research university can take on a great challenge, and that's what we've endeavored to do.
Now, we were very honored when we received a letter from you asking us to be one of the first to join this, and I think one of the first outside of the United States.
I think you were the first.
And I think it's because of the faculty and the students and the staff here who've been working for a long time on the environment, sustainability, and climate change, and we're really proud of everything that they have accomplished. And like the University of California system, for some time now, UBC has also been trying to meet aggressive targets in decreasing greenhouse emissions. And it's something that, interacting with you, your set of institutions, we set 2050 originally as the target. And so the 2025 is really, I think, put even more urgency in it. What's happened on your campuses and at UBC clearly shows that progress can be made. Even though the physical plant of this institution has grown and the number of people have grown quite significantly, emissions are significantly down. And we've really enjoyed interacting with your faculty and individuals that are leading your sustainability efforts, and sorry to say this, sharing best practice, but it really, I think, has accelerated this international collaboration. Climate change really has no borders, and it's something that does require international collaboration. So thank you for that. Let me ask you this, though. It's going to take more than North America.
Yeah.
And let's face it, China, in many ways, is leading in their efforts. And I'll tell you that about a week and a half ago, you might have heard about Macron's invitation to a group of institutions in the G7 nations. And we launched something called U7+. So the founding institutions, of which Columbia University is one, and I'd love it if California joined, the group of institutions then invited universities from around the world, including Africa. And in the end of the day, about 48 universities, global universities, got together in Paris, and Macron actually hosted the summit. And he agrees that the number one challenge that we all face globally is global warming, climate change, and it's something that's going to require more than North America. It's going to really require that we come together as a global alliance of institutions. So what are your feelings about that, thinking beyond North America?
Right, so it's clearly a global challenge, and it has real global impacts. It has global impacts on migration patterns, and we're seeing that, from a planetary perspective. We're seeing a massive movement of people from south to north. We're seeing areas of the world where they've been subjected to extreme drought. It's killed the agrarian economy, leaving lots of people helpless and homeless, and need I say, ripe for terrorist recruitment. And I would point to Syria, I'd point to Yemen as two examples of that. So the domino effects of global warming are really significant. But I'll tell you, Santa, I think also from an institutional perspective, just bringing it home, it also requires real investment by our institutions in using renewable energy, electrification, and so forth. So the UC, in addition to having a goal of being net carbon neutral by 2025, will be 100% renewable energy reliant by 2025. We've already spent about $800 million since 2014 when we first announced the goal on renewable energy resources, and by the end of next year we'll be at $1 billion of investment. So I think it's an international issue, but to demonstrate our willingness to make change, we've got to put our own skin in the game.
We do. One of the things that's going to be announced tomorrow here at UBC is a significant investment from the federal government here in Canada. We have an agency called CFI, and they're investing in making it possible for us to retrofit or to change one of our major parkades and to put solar panels on the top. It's there not only to power electrically powered vehicles, but also to create energy, hydrogen. And so it's an example of what we've been trying to do here as a university, and you have as well on your campuses, to treat our large towns, small cities as living laboratories, to try to use our innovation in facilities such as that, but also fundamental research, to scale up and to share it with our municipalities, the nations, and the world.
Indeed. In fact, one of the principles or the ideas underlying UC3 was that research universities could themselves be living laboratories and develop technologies and strategies that could then be expanded into cities and localities and just grow organically from there. So I'm really happy to hear about that.
So you're going to be able to see the announcement of this new facility.
I'll cheer it on.
And that one parkade, because of this new aggressive, by 2025, will only produce enough energy for about 1/14 of what we need. But we have quite a few parkades, so if we can find the money, eventually, hopefully we can get there. I don't know about 2025, but...
Well, and we're doing stuff with public-private partnerships. So we're just in the process of concluding a $50 million deal for a project that converts food waste into biogas. The biogas then accessible to our campuses. That follows up on a large project that we actually purchased in Shreveport, Louisiana. If you had told me I'd be doing a business deal in Shreveport, Louisiana, I would have kind of said, what? But we did. But it shows, you got to be creative and flexible, and you got to be willing to invest in the right way.
By the way, I'm looking at Walter Marita, and I have to give him a shout out because he has been, if I can use the word engine, but innovator that's really behind that really inspirational project with the parkade. And let's hear it for Walter for his leadership. In terms of food, and one of the examples we love to show you is that we're using biomass as a form. So we've been sort of systematically switching from how we heat and power our campus using biofuels. And the Board of Governors has been very supportive, and we want to scale it up even more. So we're on the same train with you, trying to get to a much more self-sufficient energy source for this campus.
Yeah, so part of that is, shooting for that goal of being net carbon neutral Part of it is developing scalable solutions that can be used beyond the university community. And part of it is kind of just unleashing the kind of innovation aspect of our faculties and incentivizing them to be innovative and to get in this game. So
I want to talk a little bit now, not so much about innovation and planning and science, and more to what you put your finger on is really leading to changes that are data-driven in policies. And as you know, there's really a heterogeneous set of views and about embracing changes in governmental policies. And so the students that I mentioned early on in my introduction as being very important agents of change, in many ways the most important catalyst. I'm going to just start off with an example. We have, in addition to C350, we have this group of students that have really been instrumental in trying to change our institution's thinking. It's called the UBC Climate Hub. And they have in their first year, really, this is their annual report, really done an extraordinary job in really getting the word out beyond this campus and interacting with school kids in primary school and secondary schools, and they have a climate mentorship program. So really, getting the word out about how urgent the situation is has been something that I really owe the students a lot of credit for their leadership. Can you talk a little bit about the role of the next generation, not only our students, but also the students that are yet to come on our campuses, in really moving forward with the narrative so that we really start to make change?
So, one of the things that we've done at UC is develop a multidisciplinary online course that is available to any student at the university. But I think you're so right, Santa, that it's the younger you go, the more the kids understand what's at stake. It's really an interesting kind of age differentiator. I think that young people know that they're going to grow up and live in the world of 2030 and 2040, where even the dramatic climatic impacts we see now will be even more extreme unless we do something about it. And so our students, and at the university, through curricula, through activities, through their own research, we gave a research award this year to a young woman who developed an anaerobic food digester that converts, again, food waste into clean energy source, and in so doing removes something like 3 tons of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere a year just with their one project. That's the kind of stuff that students are excited about, are engaged in, and that we need to be sharing to the younger ages.
So in really empowering them to be involved in the dialogue, we do at some point have to connect with policymakers. And one way we can do that is by training the next generation of governmental leaders. And the other way is really to have dialogues that include them. And one of the things that I've tried to do this year, you may have heard, is to have a roundtable where we intentionally bring in all kinds of people from outside of the university, government leaders, and there'll be some tomorrow at this summit. And I know that that's something that's close to your heart as well. And so, how can we be more effective in articulating the need for policy change as part of the path forward?
So I think, first of all, in California, we were very fortunate because our prior governor, Jerry Brown, was heavily invested in these efforts. And so we didn't have to persuade him of the importance of this. And indeed, the state legislature was setting aside money for research work in the climate change arena. I think as a coalition, UC3 needs to come together and resolve a kind of a joint advocacy platform, who we're going to talk to, when we're going to talk to them, who amongst us is going to do the talking, what's the best avenue for elevating this issue and making it a key component in a legislator's portfolio. Legislators have so many demands on themselves, and the problem with climate is it sounds so big, and it sounds like, it's so insolvable. And so the trick is to say, no, we can solve and we can also adapt. And we need to take on both of those challenges.
The thing that was beautiful about getting together at Macron's place for the U7 Plus conversation is that, as you have said, climate seems so large, but it really is going to require all of us in all of these nations around the world getting together to really solve it. And he actually agreed to take our actions are actually all published. We all voted on them unanimously. And they're really focused on the SDGs, UN SDGs. And some of them are directly relevant to what we're trying to accomplish through UC3. And we have an advocate there, and someone that's willing to, in the midst of the G7, of course, those are not exactly spontaneous events. There's a lot of Sherpas involved and things like that. But he has agreed to make sure that we have a voice within G7. Now, what happens next year and the year after that really depends upon the host nation. But that's probably one platform or arena in which we probably, as universities, have to utilize that annual invitation from him to really try to have an impact on policies globally.
Yeah, I think that's right, because I think it's unlikely that the current administration in Washington is going to assemble a similar advocacy effort. And I think the issue in the United States is going to be to insist that public policy be evidence-based and data-driven, and not driven by any particular ideology. And we have a very tough time with that in the United States right now. I think people need to recognize that. And this is another role for universities. Universities are, we are quasi-independent entities, and our research should be based on science and on the scientific method, et cetera. And we need to establish or reestablish our credibility if need be, and kind of be there as independent actors, even in the face of politics that may not necessarily be flowing our way right now in the United States. We have members of UC3 who are in Mexico. We have some in Canada. So every country has its different politics. But if the universities can come together and work and share and collaborate, we'll all be stronger.
Absolutely, absolutely. I would say that coming back to the role of students, that they're really challenging universities to divest or to invest, as I said, is well placed. It's not trivial to solve because institutions have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that the endowments that support their scholarships and professorships pay the salaries of our leading scholars that are really at the cutting edge of trying to solve these issues. We do have the governors or the trustees, or the regents, they have a responsibility to ensure that they are invested in such a way that the core asset is protected and can continue to invest in the students and faculty of the institution. We have been trying to in an incremental way, and I admit it's incremental, to start to invest into sustainable investments, sustainable futures fund. And we've been growing that on an annual basis, and we will continue to do that moving forward. If you look at the total endowment, you've seen it at UBC. It's actually, there's about $85 million invested in fossil fuel related companies. If you look at that as a percentage of the total, it's been going down. And the hope is really that we can continue to do that. But you have also been trying to do the same, and many universities are trying to do the same. It's not trivial, but the good news is that if you look at the performance of that Sustainable Investment Fund here at UBC, it's actually outperformed the rest of the portfolio. Or if you just look at the investments in fossil fuel companies. So it's actually an experiment that affirms the possibility that we can continue to do that. Tell me a little bit about your investment strategy at the University of California, because how have you been approaching that?
Yeah, so I agree with you that the fossil fuel divestment issue is a tough one. But what we've been doing at the University of California is an investment strategy where we've been putting more and more of our funds, which also support our retirement plan, into sustainability investments. We are adhering to the United Nations ESG principles on our investments, and in so doing, our investment in fossil fuels and in the carbon 200 and so forth has gone way down. And I'm hopeful that we are going to be on a glide path to ultimately exit. But we've got to do it in the right way. And it's an example where some questions are not simply turn the light switch on and turn the light switch off. And you've got to have a plan, and you've got to execute on the plan. But the plan needs to be based on your values. And our values at the University of California are clearly focused on what we, as a large institution, the University of California is the third largest employer in the state of California. It's big. And so what we can do to make sure that our investments reflect our values.
Just to make one more point, I've been told by my friends that we've got to wrap this part up and open it up to questions, and we really want your questions. But one thing I want to say before I forget is that you heard that we're on the unceded traditional territory of the Musqueam people here. And one thing that has really become apparent to us is that we have a lot to learn from the individuals who have been living here for millennia. They understand a lot about oceans. They understand a lot about the importance of biodiversity and protecting that as a proactive step in confronting or addressing climate change. So we're very proud of that, and we're looking forward to our conversations tomorrow and into the future, how we can really share what we're trying to do. I'm really impressed with what's happening at UCSD with that course. We have about several dozen courses of our own here, and so hopefully we can really share, and maybe we can use technology so that we can educate our students at our institutions, and we can learn from each other. It's really, it's going to be a great day tomorrow. So
Indeed.
Thank you very much.
Let's
give President Napolitano a round of applause.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we do have some time for questions from the audience. We have some roving mics. So please, before you speak, be recognized by one of the microphones. Everybody will have a chance to speak.
UBC has $80 million invested in coal, oil, and gas. UBC students have been calling on you to divest for the past 5 years. and you have continued to prioritize corporate interests over our own. We are in a climate crisis, and you cannot claim to be climate leaders while investing in the industry that is engulfing our forests in flames, eroding our coastlines, and pillaging our communities. You cannot claim to serve us while actively destroying our future. UBC, divest now.
Divest now! UC universities are partners in the TMT Observatory Corporation, which is attempting to build the 30-meter telescope on Mauna Kea, a sacred site of the Kanaka Maoli, without their consent. This week, 33 Hawaiian elders were arrested for defending their own land. We call on Janet Napolitano to withdraw UC from the TMT Observatory Corporation and condemn its actions. Protect Mauna Kea, uphold Indigenous rights, respect Indigenous consent. Respect Indigenous consent.
Janet Napolitano. Janet Napolitano, under your leadership, the Department of Homeland Security deported a record-breaking 1.6 million undocumented migrants from the United States. All people and all students deserve freedom, freedom from borders, freedom from discrimination, and freedom from hate. We call on UBC and UC to join the global fight to end mass deportations, to end the militarization of illegitimate settler borders, and to stop the rising tide of hate speech on our campuses that is threatening student safety. End border imperialism. Migrant justice now.
Migrant justice now.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Question here, please. Just wait for the microphone because this is being recorded and webcast.
Hi, my name is Jean Boucher. I'm a researcher here, and your talk tended toward the sort of a technological solution, and I want to build on the divestment point. So what exactly is the holdup? So you mentioned you didn't bring your superhero cape today, and so we know we need cultural change besides technical. We know we need political change. So, what is blocking? How much can you be an agent as a president? Are you kind of stuck with sort of? I think last week your Senate faculty just voted and is pushing for the regions to divest. So, what's the holdup on divestment?
I think a holdup is not on the principle of divestment. It is the glide path to divestment and timing, but we are working on it.
So from a UBC perspective, I think people know that I can't make a unilateral decision about investment of our endowment. I've met with student groups and I've encouraged them. I was actually an activist myself with respect to clean water. And so what we've tried to do, I arrived 3 years ago in this 5-year span, and 3 years ago we started to create this sustainable futures pool, and we've grown it, and we're committed to doing that on a regular basis. So it's a decision that's at UBC that's made by the governors, all of the governors, not just me, with advice from investment management group. So.
Right here, please, in the front.
Hi, my name is Michael.
It's on. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Michael Small. I teach global governance here at UBC and also teach climate change at Simon Fraser University here in Vancouver as well. My question is for you, President Napolitano, looking beyond the immediate environment of your own university. How would you compare the capacity of universities to exercise influence over changing public and opinion and larger social change on climate change compared to the role of the government? You've played leadership roles at both the state and at the federal level in the United States and in executive functions. You're in a very different role now, but it's sort of in a larger way, I'm trying to think about the capacity that universities have, the strengths they have, and also the limitations of affecting change compared to the kind of change that you could carry out in the roles that you've had in your immediate past in government.
Yeah, so I think that that as universities, we ought to use our size. So we have thousands of students, we have thousands of faculty, and they are all voters. And I think if we organize, speak with a unified voice, that we could have an impact on policymakers. Because in the end, policymakers they're elected. And one of the things that UC3 possibly could put on its agenda is kind of a unified political advocacy approach. As I mentioned, the UC itself is the third largest employer in the state of California. Now, in the state of California, we already, the elected leadership already believes in climate change and is taking action and the like. But we need to be thinking about, okay, well, what can we do then at the national level? You know, in the United States, you may have noticed we have a presidential election going on. And several of the candidates have put forth climate proposals. I don't know that any of those proposals have actually been vetted according to the best science. And not just science, but from an economic, behavioral science, et cetera, point of view. So that also needs to be done.
Let me just chime in because this is Canada. I don't know if this is working, but we also have an election coming up. And there are different views with the different parties that are up for the election. And UBC is also one of the largest employers here in Vancouver, in British Columbia. And we have the same kind of responsibility to really take what we know as a community of scholars and share it with them. We do that on a regular basis. We go to Ottawa, we go to Victoria, and we really are proud to share the findings of the faculty and students here. Other questions?
At the back, please. Yes?
Over there?
Hi, my name is Allie, and I'm in my final year of materials engineering here at UBC. And I was wondering, what does a research university have in collaboration with industries? So I just came back from an exchange program in Denmark, and Denmark Technical University has a very good collaboration with industries like Maersk and all other big corporations. And the corporations help the researchers to develop solutions for sustainability. So what do you have to say about researchers and corporations? Because right now corporations are painted bad, so I was wondering, President Napolitano, what's your opinion about that aspect?
Yeah, so I think I already mentioned the public-private partnership that we've entered into with a company that converts food waste into biogas. We have a number of similar type arrangements in the queue. And we also, our professoriate are also entrepreneurs themselves. And many of them are starting their own companies in this regard. So I think we can address it from two directions.
Certainly the landscape is very similar in Canada. There are many, many interactions between our graduate students and our faculty and companies. I think Walter has been directly involved in some of those. And so that is certainly part of the solution. And there is a research supercluster here based in British Columbia. It is really a national supercluster, and it cuts across many different sectors. That's an example where UBC is actually playing a direct role in several projects that have rolled out in that federally financed supercluster. And it cuts across many different sectors that will be essential to really deal with climate change. if you want to know more about that, you can email me and I can give you more information about that consortium. Other questions?
Right here at the front. Microphone's coming.
Thank you both. Sonia. One thing I've become really concerned about, both from a climate change perspective and a university's perspective, is political polarization. It seems like in a democracy, we're not going to be able to do anything large scale without enormous national unity. Everyone talks about World War II, but we had unity then. And then from a university's perspective, in the US, polls have gone, the fraction of Americans, Republicans that think universities are good for the society has gone from 2/3 in favor to 2/3 against since 2015. And there's also been an increasing political concentration among our faculty and administrators and graduate students. And so I was wondering what your thoughts are on how we can be positive agents of change in that regard.
So I think political polarization is a virus that has really infected so many issues. But let's just take the incidence of extreme weather events, the greater number of landfall hurricanes, the greater number and intensity of tornadoes, the drought in the far west that led to massive forest fires. People can see these things with their eyes. And so we need to say, look, this is not a Democratic or a Republican issue. Look, you just watch the news, see what is happening. And we have the smartest people in the world who can dedicate their energies to this. And we need to mobilize together to do so. But just focus people on what they can see.
I would answer a slightly different way in that to really get the news out or the story out, the narrative out, it requires that people can distinguish between news and fake news. And the phenomena of climate change deniers, of which there's some very prominent individuals, really gets in the way of universities getting the news out. And so one of the things that UBC is doing that I'm very proud of is, as you know, our School of Journalism is really the birthplace of something called Conversation Canada. And it's incredibly important in this age where it's hard to distinguish between fake news and fact, evidence-based information. It's incredibly important for universities, their School of Journalism, the students that are involved, to really be committed to integrity in dissemination of information. And they have published some very, very important essays and articles that really are focused specifically on this, things such as climate change denial. And universities have to do more of that. They have to have more roundtables. They have to have more summits. We have to create our own news, because if you look at all of the institutions in the UC3 consortium, if you look at the U7+, millions of students are in U7+. And so you can see the passion, the anger of students, which is well placed. If we can harness that and get that message out and help them get the message out, that's part of the solution.
We have time for one more question. Who will ask the last question? Right here, please.
Such a privilege, wow. Thank you both for your words. I think that universities are definitely a great space for research, and there's awesome things coming out. But you do run the risk of being in silos and having a lot of that good research stay on your campuses. What are you both most proud of that you've done in the communities and the cities that you're both located in terms of climate change?
So one of the things I'm proud of was some 50-plus UC researchers came together and developed a report called 10 Scalable Solutions to Climate Change. And they have been advocating based on those solutions in Sacramento, but also in Paris at the meeting on the Paris Accord, and also meetings at the Vatican, where they've been having meetings on climate change. So I would point to that report, which is available online, by the way.
Well, I want to get back to the students, but I'm going to start by saying that the U7 Plus initiative is something that I'm most proud of because of the size of it. I think UBC is really privileged to be part of that group, to be a founding member. The size of it with 2 million students around the globe, getting to my point that the only way to really solve this very difficult question is to look beyond North America. And so UBC's involvement in that, and we intend to be very active in that consortium, is something that I'm proud of as an institution. I'm really proud of the innovations that are occurring in terms of campus as a living lab, which has really been embraced by many other institutions. I'm proud of that accomplishment of our faculty and students. But I'm going to end with the students. I'm most proud of their initiative, of this climate hub. Several hundred students, not only here, but also in primary and secondary schools, are motivated. They're activated, they're passionate because of the innovation coming directly from our students.
Well, thank you for your questions, President Tono.
Now, this is a special situation here, which I'm not sure people are aware is going to occur. We have here at UBC a very special medal. It's called the President's Medal, the UBC Medal. It's awarded, it's one of the highest honors given by this university. It's awarded to a person or a group of individuals who have made a transformative and significant contribution to the purposes and ideals of this institution. Recipients can be students, faculty, alumni, donors, staff, friends, individuals that are not connected to this institution, but who have inspired us and others through their actions. It gives me great pleasure to present the President's Medal, the UBC Medal, to Janet Napolitano. The University of British Columbia is grateful for Janet Napolitano's leadership, for her visionary leadership, not only in the field of higher education, but as president of the University of California since 2013. She has been a tireless advocate for access to higher education, for environmental responsibility and climate change awareness, and for the importance of higher education in really moving policy change globally. She has not been shy to lead boldly and by example. If you could please approach me. It is therefore my honor to confer upon you on behalf of the entire university the UBC Medal. We are honored to have you on our campus and to have you as a leader that has brought together this very important UC3 consortium. Let's give her a round of applause.
Thank you. Well, thank you, and I want to thank you, President Ono. I want to thank the University of British Columbia. I want to thank, and I'm going to accept this medal on behalf of all of the people at the University of California, particularly in the Office of the President, who have worked so tirelessly on advocating and supporting this important issue involving the university's role in combating climate change. So I want to thank you, David, and there are others around I see. And I get the medal, but I'm going to, and say I'm so grateful and I'm excited about tomorrow. So let's get at it. Thank you.